Welcome. Today I want to talk to you about something that's really important, and that is clearing the past, clearing your past so that you can have the future that you want to, especially in love. Now, if you can imagine my hands as being your heart, if my hands are open and ready to receive, like they are in the position that they are now, then I am much more able to receive love from a man, from the outside world, and what the universe, God, has to offer me. But if my hands are clenched and if my hands are tight, and if I withdraw or draw in or pull back, then it's very difficult for me to be able to receive the kind of love that I might desire. And even though it might be incredibly painful for me to not have a relationship or to not have love, in a protective position like this, I might feel safer. Now, this is very understandable because there are some real wounds and some real hurt and some real pain that many of us have experienced in our lives and in our relationships. And I want to honor and respect that, first of all, because that's very important to acknowledge, to be gentle and kind and loving to yourself, and to respect the fact that you may, as we all do, have gathered some wounds in this life. Nonetheless, I do want to attempt to at least give you some beginning ideas on how you might be able to begin to release some of those things and clear the past so that you can be more open and ready and able to receive the love that I believe is fully available to you. I'm Michelle Marchant Johnson. I'm with Love Life Coaching, and I'm here to help you be a woman of high value and attract your high quality man. Now, there's a wonderful quote by the poet Rumi, which many of you have probably heard, and I think it's so important. And it says, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." I think that's such a beautiful quote and so beautifully said. And the truth is that when we have the clenched fist kind of approach to love and life, it's the barriers that we've built to protect ourselves, and we believe that they're protecting ourselves, but in reality, in many cases, they're actually blocking us from having what we most desire. They're creating barriers from intimacy and love and the joy that might otherwise be possible in a relationship. So I want to talk about this and share just a couple of things that I think might be helpful, recognizing that if there are deep wounds or trauma experiences that you've had, it may be an ongoing process of therapy and support and some of those kinds of things that you need to support you on your healing journey. This is not always something we can just snap our fingers with and take care of. But the good news is that I believe that as you're moving toward that more open place and leaving those experiences from the past behind, it creates a whole new possibility of love, joy, and hope for you in your life. So it's worth the effort and energy. Now, these wounds or these blocks can come from various things: disappointments that you may have experienced in your life, false or limiting beliefs that have been formed, maybe over something that was said to you by someone or something that you experienced that created a belief, and then you added to that belief and have created some confirmation bias around it. It may come as a result of disabilitating fears. There are some fears that we can form and we can develop in a very strong way that may or may not be serving us well at this stage in life. Distorted views of yourself or of others, of men in this case, painful experiences that are not yet healed, and these barriers can also come from a lack of forgiveness of ourselves and others. Those are just a few ways that these barriers are formed. Now, I want to share with you a story and then a question and a little tip that I think can be a gateway to begin to discover if and where you may be blocked, and to maybe bring some of these things to the surface so that you can begin to explore them, or you can begin to get the support that you might need so that you can be on a healing path, so that you are able to more fully open yourself up and be ready, willing, and able to receive the love that I believe is possible for you and that you may so strongly desire. So when I was growing up, my grandmother lived in a very small home, and she had a very small kitchen, but she loved to cook, and she would feed everyone that came into her door. And although she didn't really have a lot in terms of means, she was very generous and would feed anyone that walked through the door. And she had this one cupboard in her kitchen. It was this wonderful spice cupboard. And I loved going to my grandmother's house and opening that cabinet, opening those doors and smelling the combination of the different spices, because it was pungent and strong, and just there was something about the combination of all these spices that was just intoxicating. It smelled amazing. It was one of my favorite things to do at my grandmother's house. So one day I went to my grandmother's house and I opened up this cupboard expecting this amazing smell, this amazing, wonderful aroma that always emanated from her cupboard. And instead, I got this terrible, stinky, nasty, horrible smell. And I thought, wow, what has happened, Grandma? And she said, we've got to go through this cupboard. So one by one, we began taking out the spice bottles and setting them out on the counter. And one by one, and we're going deeper and deeper into the counter, and we're not seeing anything, but the smell is just about knocking us over. And it was not a good smell. And as we continued to remove all of the spices, we started to see some little droppings. And before long, we found the culprit, which was a dead mouse, which had gotten into grandmother's spice cupboard and had gone in there to live and had ultimately died there. So now there was a dead mouse in grandmother's spice cupboard. And so instead of it smelling beautiful and wonderful and being inviting and intoxicating, there was this nasty, nasty aroma coming out, which was overwhelming the wonderful smell that would be there otherwise. Well, I would say that some of these faults and limiting beliefs, some of these fears and doubts, some of these wounds and unhealed experiences from the past, some of this lack of forgiveness can be kind of like that dead mouse in the spice cupboard. Sometimes we don't even know it's there, but it's putting out an energy, or it's putting out a vibration that is repelling the right person and love from coming closer to you, even though you might desire it. So what do you do? What do you do, especially if you don't even know if there's a mouse in your spice cupboard, so to speak? What you can do is begin by asking this one question. And this is a question that I always ask women when I'm exploring the opportunity of whether or not we might be a right fit to work together. I always ask them the question, what do you think could be slowing you down, standing in the way, or stopping you from having the relationship of your dreams? And at first they might say an answer like, well, I'm just not meeting anyone. Well, that could be true. Or they might say, I am feeling like I'm just too busy. I just don't have a lot of time. Well, that also can be true. That seems to be one of the challenges of our day and age. But once I ask this question multiple times, and I keep asking them this question over and over again until they are not able to come up with any more answers. Once I ask them this question multiple times, oftentimes what happens is that we get to a deeper level of what might be going on. So for example, once I've asked the question 2 or 3 times, then a woman might be saying, well, I recognize that I'm incredibly afraid of losing my independence. I've worked really hard for my independence, and I don't want to be with someone who wants to control me. An understandable fear. But see, that's a whole different level that we're getting to than when we first started with the gateway of the question. And so what I want to invite you to do is to take out a pen and paper or type it on your computer or whatever works for you and ask yourself that question. What do you think could be slowing you down, standing in the way, or stopping you from having the relationship of your dreams right now? And just list anything and everything that comes up for you, just like we were taking out anything and everything that was in that spice cupboard. Just see what's coming out. Because once you can actually tangibly write it down and you can actually tangibly see it, you can begin to look at some of these things a little bit more objectively. You may not have even been aware until you wrote it down that that was operating underneath the surface. And then you can begin to explore whether or not some of those beliefs, fears, doubts, disappointments, wounds from the past. First of all, is there something that you can or want to do about them to begin to move through them? And you can also begin to ask whether or not those still serve you. And if they don't, you can begin to remove those things and get your spice cupboard energetically and aromatically inviting again, so to speak, by clearing out what might be standing in the way of you being that most beautiful, inviting, intoxicating, attractive, inspiring version of yourself, which is who you want to be to attract the very best man for you. We don't want your light and energy and receptivity to be blocked. Now, the good news is, I don't believe you have to have everything handled or be perfect in every way in order to have love, because if that were the case, none of us would ever find or attract love, because that's part of life's journey, is learning more about ourselves, learning more about relationships, and healing our own wounds by doing the work that's required for that. But I do believe that the more things you can clear out of the way, and being on that healing path and that healing journey sets you up to be more ready, able, and willing to receive the love that might be available to you, rather than staying in that protective position that you might otherwise be in. And I hope this is really helpful. I actually have so many resources coming up in my Mr. Right Academy that I'll be sharing as a program that you can join very shortly to help you if this is an area of your journey that you might need some support in. Because I think this is an area that is sometimes maybe overlooked or not paid enough attention to. Yes, you want to get out there and meet the right man, but you want to do it energetically prepared to receive him. Otherwise, you may be blind to him, or you may be energetically giving off a barrier that keeps him away. And so I'm excited about the possibility of supporting you on an ongoing basis with these videos, and hope you'll leave a comment below and subscribe to my channel and like the video if you do. And then I hope you'll stay tuned and also watch your email inbox as I share more about my upcoming program. I'm sending you love and blessings from here, and I'm cheering you on. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.